think I know the answer to the question, but I'll ask it anyway. Is there a date on the calendar that when it comes up every year, it evokes some feeling, some memories? It has significance to it. Yes. I think we all have at least one of those days. So interestingly and divinely and perfectly, today is one of those days for me. 14 years ago, I tried to kill myself. I tried to end my life by suicide, August 31st, 2011. And that was the day that what I call the monster convinced me, had established not so much thoughts, not so much feelings, but actually beliefs. Now, belief and truth are not necessarily the same thing. You know, for how long did the world believe it to be true that it was flat? And of course, we realize that that's not the case. So on that day, 14 years ago, what I believed to be true was, it was the exact opposite of what Spirit knew. I believed that I was stupid and pitiful and ugly and worthless and despicable, that I had no redeeming value whatsoever. And probably the worst belief was that I knew it to be true, that everything would be fine for the people that I would leave behind. It wasn't an act of selfishness, it was an act of selflessness, because their lives would be proportionally, exponentially better off without me. But Spirit had another plan for me that day, thank God. And instead of falling, not so much jumping, 730 feet from the Forest Hill Bridge, I was taken off that bridge to an emergency room, and then I spent 15 days in a psychiatric ward and began this journey of what I like to say from mental hellness into the experience of mental wellness. And it has been a less than perfectly straight path. It has been very up and down. There have been dips back into hellness, but there has also been extraordinary experiences of heaven on earth. And what I thought about, what do I want to talk about today? And I told my brother, I said, you know what, we're going to call this sermon Above and Below. And by the end of it, you'll understand what I mean by that. But I want to reflect on several different things. And I want to do it by way of an example. And again, just rest assured, there is no toilet water. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, you got to talk to me later. So, this glass weighs 15 and a half ounces. So if I put the glass here, the weight doesn't change, right? If I leave it there for an hour, the weight doesn't change. If I leave that glass here for a week, it's no heavier than 15 and a half ounces, right? There's really nothing that I can do to the glass that's going to change its empirical weight. But what about this? What if I hold the glass? Does the weight any different? Right. What if I hold the glass for 6 hours? Is the weight any different? What if I hold it for a day? Like I hold this glass for an entire day. Is the weight any different? But after a day, does it feel heavier? Even though it's not, empirically, it's not any different, but does it feel heavier, even though the weight really hasn't changed? What if I hold it for a week? Do I start to hurt? Does that pain now radiate, impact other parts of my being? So now, could it potentially start to impact how I'm looking at the world? Am I able to focus on being in relationship with somebody while my arm at this point, after a week, I don't even know if I could do that. But does it become numb? So the pain now goes from my arm, it just starts to impact us. But the weight hasn't changed, but it feels heavier. It feels different, right? What if this was our life? Specifically, what if this was our soul? What if this was our part of our soul that has those things, and let's say it represents this. Now, this is 20 ounces of water. But let's say these are regrets. This is unresolved grief. This is trauma. These are mistakes. These are things that, gosh, I wish I would have done that, but I didn't. Or, man, I wish I hadn't done that, but I did. I wish I would have said that, and I didn't. Oh, gosh, I wish I didn't say that. All the different things. Now, you probably don't have any of those in your soul. I mean, you're all Unity students. You're truth students. Come on. So when I was going to jump off that bridge 14 years ago, my glass was full of all these different things. And what I've learned over the last 14 years is how heavy this is. And what has been taught to me and what I'd like to share with you is what works for me, what allows me to be here today. And the first thing is I had to learn I got to put it down. Like I've been holding this for so long. And for me, people say, what happened? How did you end up on that bridge 14 years ago? And really it was unresolved trauma and a lot of different things. And it was, in the words of Maya Angelou, there's no greater agony than bearing the weight of an untold story. I'm 62 years old. You didn't talk about those things when I was raised. And so the first thing was like, okay, I got to put it down. Like, oh my gosh, does that feel better? But you know what? What I learned is you got to be careful where you put it down. Because now there's a difference between when something spills, which is an accident, and when you pour something, which is intentional. So sometimes in our desire to empty our glass, we may spill it. We may share it with a situation or a person that's not safe. We don't want to do that. So you have to do it on something solid. And what I've learned is that the most solid thing in the world, and this is exactly what happens here, and in our more traditional brothers and sisters, but we would also echo it here, Jesus talked about this. When two or more are gathered, there I am. In unity, we know what I am, the significance of that is. It's all about connection. That if I try to empty that glass by myself, I'm going to spill it. But if I do it in connection with another soul or souls, then I'm pouring because I'm sharing. And I think that really, in the work that I do, it's all about connection. Connection creates hope. Hope saves lives. But what is connection? And this is a quote, but it should be a definition. It's Brené Brown, and she says, "I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, when they feel heard, and when they feel valued. When they can give and receive without judgment, and they derive strength and sustenance from the relationship." Brother, do you mind if I just drop the mic because of that? I mean, what else is there? That sums up all unity teachings right there. It's all this. This table is solid because it's symbolic for me. It's all about connection. It's all about, I can spill this. I can spill what's out inside of me. But if I share what's inside of me, that's healing. That's different. And I got to do it with at least one other person. Remember, when two or more are gathered, there I am. In every philosophical, theological approach to how can we become more unified with the universe, it's all about being in relationship. And at first it was hard because I had to have that T thing, trust. You want me to tell my story? But this person, I remember, was the first psychologist that I met with, created this space where I felt safe. And it was a man, and I had been terribly sexually abused when I was a small child by a Boy Scout leader. And here was this person to allow me to share. So again, remember, now I can start to pour some of this out. So now there's not quite as much in there anymore. And then it just went on and on. And over the years, I've been in hundreds of therapy sessions. I've been in hundreds of group sessions. I have given close to 1,000 speeches around the world in sharing my story. And it all has allowed me to have this experience of being connected with other souls so that I can let some of this go. And it's interesting, and I don't think anybody knows here, so when I'm not speaking, I drive Uber and Lyft. And I do it principally because life can be expensive, so it's nice to have a little extra money, but it allows me to have the opportunity to put my principles of connection to practice. And so I drove last night. I had 14 rides. And about a week ago, I said this to my wife. I said, you know what they're like? Every night it averages about 14 or 15. It's like 15 blind dates. It is, and it is amazing. I don't force anybody to speak. But the depth of sharing that comes out is amazing to me. It is absolutely astonishing. And I won't talk about myself unless, like last night, maybe 3 or 4 times, someone will say, is this your main job? And I say, well, no, this is actually my secondary job. My main job is I'm a professional speaker, and I share my journey from mental illness to mental wellness. And they're like, oh, my gosh. And my brother, my sister, I had somebody last night. It was a group of people, and the gentleman in the back, his friend, had jumped off the Forest Hill Bridge, the same bridge I was going to jump off. And I've had an experience recently in which there was somebody else was carrying a lot of water. So picked up an older couple at a Mexican restaurant, and the gentleman, sat in the front with me, which was great, and the woman in the back, and I thought, what's a little different, because there was only 2, and, usually they'll sit together. So we're just kind of having a conversation just about life and everything else. And I said, how was dinner? And he was a little silly because I think he'd had a margarita or so. No big deal. Make a longer story short, come to find out he had just lost his wife like 2 days before. And the woman in the back was one of his best friends helping him take some of this and pour it out. And I thought, what a beautiful thing. And so we talked for about 15 minutes, and we got to his house, and he was upbeat, he was very positive, but he was also emoting at the same time. So, I love that example of masculinity. He wasn't trying to hide how he felt. He was just sharing how he was. And so I said, not sure if you want it, but I'm going to give you a hug. And so he got out, came around the side, I got out, and you had this embrace. Never saw this soul before. Probably will never see him again. But this embrace, it wasn't, like an A-frame hug, kind of like this. No, it was like how I'd hug my brother in the back, or hug my sister here, or hug this beautiful soul. It's incredible. And I put my hand on his heart, and I said, I love you. And he said, thank you so much. And I said, okay, one more. We hugged again. And I just think, it's amazing to me how simple it is for us to have these acts of connection no matter where we go. And it's interesting, my brother Tom shared shared with me a scientific study, because we talk a lot about self-care. You gotta eat right, you do all those different things. And so they did a study in which they showed empirically that when we create connection, when we give of ourselves, small little things, it's far more powerful to us than self-care is. And it's interesting because I just had this experience. I spoke at University of Alabama last week, and I was getting ready. I was leaving. It was early in the morning, and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I wasn't in the best space. I was kind of cranky. And so I said, all right, let's just practice what you preach, brother. So I connected with the person at the counter, a little bit there. I'm still like, I'm like, all right, let's go. And so I go through security, and I'm just about to pass the supervisor's desk, and I said, all right, let me just do this. And I came to her and I said, ma'am, may I say something, please? And she said, certainly. I said, thank you. I said, I just have to thank you for all that you do. I can't imagine how many threats you have subdued. I have no idea what those, I don't even know. And yet you continue to do it. And here we are bitching, that it takes too long to go through security. And she looked and she said, thank you. I said, well, thank you. And then walked a little further. Okay, now I'm feeling a little better. So now there's a police officer. And I said, excuse me, sir, may I say something? And he said, yeah. And I said, thank you. I said, I come to this airport a lot, and I always feel safe, and that's because of what you do. And he said, yeah, thanks, brother. I appreciate that. And now I'm feeling even better. Now I go to, there's a young man, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, and he is cleaning. And I said, brother, may I say something to you? And he said, yes. I said, I am amazed. I have never seen this airport dirty, ever. And I know it's because of like the work that you do. I said, thank you so much. And he was like, thank you. I felt, in like a 2-minute span, the transformation of me, how I felt was, I couldn't believe it. And I practiced this, and I'm like, and then it was just interesting that my brother had shared this. And I think it's just really, my main point today is a reminder, the realization that, the weight of this may not change, but it gets heavy because we're holding on to stuff. And then the glass can get filled and emptied and filled and emptied and filled and emptied. And really the only way is that we can assist one another in really simple ways by creating connection. You don't have to be professionals. You could just be another spiritual being. And so it was interesting until it was 5 years ago. August 31st of every year was the worst day of the year for me. Hated it. I'm a January baby anyway. Interesting that my wife's name is Summer. And so on this day 5 years ago, I go to the mailbox, and there's this card. No return address. I'm really not in the mood. And the card says, advice from a glacier. Like, what? Come on, man, not today. Carve your own path. Go slow. Channel your strengths. Smooth the way for others. But whatever. Just not, I don't want it today. And I'm going to throw the card away. And you know what? Thank God I did not. Because on the inside it says, happy today. From my great friend Greg, who remembered and did something about it. He knew the glass is full. Hey, just a note to remind you that you are an extraordinary person with so much to give so many others. You're a tremendous source of healing just by your personable presence. This is not only my sentiment, so many others also believe in you. Believe in yourself. Reject the lies. I love you. And last story. In the universe, I marvel because the universe, like, don't you have other things to do? How could you be so specific on me, of all people? So I've been married twice, hit the jackpot both times. My first beloved and I are still great friends. We ran an animal sanctuary, as I've shared many times. My wife now I'm 62, she's 43. Yes, because I have game. And there are 3 children. I love that. So we have 3 children, 14-year-old daughter, 17-year-old daughter, and a 20-year-old son. So not long ago, we went to the river. And Gracie, my youngest, she's a wild child. She's amazing. And so we're playing around and everything else. It's just been an amazing day. And then Summer says to me, she said, "Do you realize what happened today?" I'm like, well, no, I don't. I mean, we had a great time. It was family time and everything else. She said, "Honey, do you not realize what happened?" "No, I don't." She said, "Sweetheart, we were in the river in the shadow of the bridge. 14 years ago, you stood on top of that bridge. Today, you played in the water with your daughter in the shadow of the same bridge." Sometimes being above is not the best place to be. Sometimes below can provide you with an enormous opportunity to realize the gift of life. Thank you all so much.
Winter's here, it's the time of year to celebrate the season. Family and friends, joy never ends. Our connection is the reason, and the very best part is the love in your hearts. Be the light that shines in the dark. Be the hope as it takes it a spark. If love is to be, it all starts with you and me. Be the light, be the light, be the light. Like a candle flame in a window pane, our embers are burning by the fireside. As we celebrate, we illuminate. The light we shine is multiplied, and the angels sing with the love that we bring. Be the light that shines in the dark. Be the hope as it takes is a spark. If love is to be, it all starts with you and me. Be the light, be the light, be the light. In the blackest night, there's a shining light, shining so bright. Be the light that shines shines in the dark. Be the hope. All it takes is a spark. If love is to be, it all starts with you and me. Be the light, be the light, be the light. Be the light, be the light. Be the light, be the light, be the light. Be the light, be the light, be the light. Be the light, be the light, be the light. We sing the song of jubilation because our hearts have been set free. The gift of God is life within us. The joy, the peace, the majesty. We're learning to love, to learn how to live. For within the Spirit, love is all there is, pure in heart. So God we dwell with gift of vision, and we can tell that God is real, God is magnificent, God is light, God is love, God is real, God is magnificent, God is light, God is love. I am real, I am magnificent, I am light, I am love. I am real, I am magnificent, I am light, I am love. You are real, you are real, you are magnificent, you are light, you are love. You are real, you are magnificent, you are light, you are love. We are real, we are magnificent, we are light, we are love. We are real, we are magnificent, we are light, we are love. God is real, God is real, God is magnificent, God is light, God is love. God is real, God is magnificent, God is light, God